Good morning. It's actually a pleasure to be here and to be able to address knowledgeable audience. And I'm sure that each one of you is a lot more competent in this subject than I am. But I will try to do my best and share whatever information that I have available. So I'm Jagtar Basra, and I live in United Kingdom, UK, and I was given the opportunity and invited to come and address this learned audience. So this is actually, everybody has already covered that, Fire and Safety Electronic Security International Conference for 2 days in Kathmandu, Nepal. What gives me the right to come and speak here? I have been speaking all over the world and met some of the most prolific dignitaries that I have ever had the pleasure to meet. And that included the Prime Ministers of the United Kingdom, India, and other people, including King Charles and so on. So I've been privileged and honored to be given so many opportunities to be able to address the international audience throughout the world. So if you got any questions or anything else, we'll take those at the end of the session, and we'll try to maintain timely manner, because like we've said, that we've got a busy schedule, and we will try to catch up and make time wherever possible. History of the forest fires and wildfires in Nepal. And this is a subject that is already close to your heart, and everyone is aware of that. Introduction to Nepal's forest, devastating impact and cost of forest fires. Nepal impact, destruction, cost, and preventing forest fires and controlling wildfires. The use of drone and other equipment for the fire management. In the past, drones were not available, and some of the technology that was available was actually limited. So we are fortunate that we have a lot more technology available at our disposal to be able to address some of those issues. So history of the wildfires in Nepal. My previous speaker yesterday covered in depth the number of fires and the data available for that purpose. But I am not going to go into a lot of the details, but I'll try to cover generics and give an overview of the problem that exists. I think we have to put things into context that wildfires are not only a problem in Nepal. They are actually a problem across the world. Greece has suffered wildfires, but each year in California, America, they have massive wildfires. And they still refuse to acknowledge the fact that the global warming may be having an impact on various things. Himalayan region is particularly susceptible to wildfires due to unique geography and climate. Dry vegetation, very steep slopes, and strong winds contribute to the rapid spread of the fire, posing a significant risk. So other people in the flat plains don't have such problems, but when you've got a terrain that's difficult to manage, it adds to the problem. And in general trends, wildfires in Nepal are most common during the dry season, typically from February to May, and the temperatures are high and the vegetation is dry. And those are common sense that everybody is aware of that. Human activities such as slash burn, agriculture, careless disposal of cigarettes contribute to a lot of the causes of the fires. So if we can educate the people to be a little bit more aware, this will help and prevent some of the fires and the damage that's being done. Climate change has exacerbated the frequency and intensity of the wildfires in the recent years. We're seeing the evidence of this throughout the world, not only just in Nepal. And limited historical records are actually available, and anecdotal evidence suggests that wildfires were common in the 18th and 19th century. So it's not a new phenomenon. It has been in existence for a number of years already. These fires were often caused by human activity, such as land clearing and accidental ignitions. And also, there have been a number of instances where certain people start the fires because they think it's fun to do that. And then they make the videos and TikTok and so on, say, look what I've done. And it should be taken very seriously, and any perpetrators of such activities should be punished very, very severely. Lack of organized fire management system led to widespread damage of the forests. And if we look at it in a little bit more detail, major wildfire events. In 1999, one of the most severe wildfire seasons in Nepal's history, with widespread fires across the terrain and the regions. 2009 also saw a significant number of wildfires outbreak that affected large area of the forest, particularly in the mid-hills. And 2016, devastating fire season also caused extensive damage, forest and wildfires. You see, we have to bear that in mind. I will cover that in more of the slides. The fires themselves cause a lot more deeper problems and issues than just burning some of the vegetations. And I'll try to go through some of those issues as we go through the slides. And in 2021, another severe wild season where fires reported in over 500 locations across the country, including protected areas. So like I said, I'm sure you guys live here and you live, dream, and put up with all of this. So you're more aware of such problems and issues than I am. I can only speak from the outsider looking in, and you are the guys on the inside trying to look out. So I can never, ever compare my experiences or my knowledge or depth of my knowledge to what you guys already possess. So all I'm doing here is, as an international speaker, highlighting some of those problems and making people aware. And I'm not trying to be an expert on it. I'm not. You guys are the real experts. You are the people who actually know the depth of the problem and the issues. Until international people recognize these issues and problems, they cannot be addressed. And here is a quick overview of the recent forest fires instances in 2020, 2021, and 2023. So series of fires ravaged several districts. Forest fire season intensifies with the fires spreading more to the remote areas which were previously unknown to the fires and were protected. So it is actually becoming quite clear that these fires are becoming more intense and more frequent and more severe, and they do a lot more damage. So impact of the fires. Firstly, it's the habitat loss. Wildfires destroy habitat, leading to a loss of biodiversity and displacement of wildlife. I will go into details, and Nepal is very, very lucky to have such a diverse wild animals, birds, and everything else. And that has a major impact upon those. And soil degradation and biodiversity fires damage and weaken the soils, making it more susceptible to erosion and landslides. Loss of biodiversity, wildfires destroy habitats for the endangered species, including tiger, rhinos, and various bird species. I think we are all aware of that. A lot more animals and birds and plants are becoming distinctly sort of in danger of being wiped out. So we have to be conscious of the fact that this planet belongs to all of us, including the wildlife, the birds, and the animals. It's not just for us. We need them along with us to survive, because they are part of the nature that builds the whole thing. Air pollution, we're all aware of that. At certain times of the year, the air is so polluted, it becomes very, very difficult to breathe. And this pollution is not only just contributed to the wildfires, but also as we move into the next generation, more cars, more bikes, more scooters, etc., are contributing heavily towards the pollution. We can't just blame everything on wildfires, because there are other factors that we have to take into account. Yesterday, one of the speakers actually covered the area where they said that more electronic vehicles are being purchased in Nepal than anything else. Almost every 2-to-1 ratio, the next cars are electronic. I think we fail to actually recognize that the electric vehicle needs to be charged. Unless that power is generated by renewable energy, whether it's wind, solar, wave, any of the renewables, the damage is still the same. Power plants are burning fossil fuels, and we are producing, but we say, yes, but I'm driving an electric car. We actually forget how the car is charged. So it's not an easy solution just to say, if everybody bought an electric car, the pollution will disappear. No, it won't. All we're doing is we're passing it down the chain. We're not addressing the issue. So we've got to be aware that there is a lot more to it than just basic, we're saying, electric cars. Okay, Nepal's forests are critical for its economy and environmental. Learning about the devastating impact of recent fires, cause and challenges facing Nepal in preventing the future fires. I've already covered that. So the frequency and intensity of the fires is increasing year by year. And Nepal experienced an average of 1,000 forest fires annually, with a significant increase in the frequency and intensity of the fires. In 2015, average number of forest fires has increased by over 20%. So you can see we're not slowing down the impact. In fact, what we're doing is we're contributing towards it, and we're increasing it. And it's not government's problem, and it's not individual one's problem. It's all our problem, because Nepal belongs to every individual who lives here. And it also belongs to a lot of the people who are away from here because this is their homeland. And look at the damage that's done. Tree mortality. Forest fires kills trees, reducing the forest cover and impacting the overall health of the ecosystem. Everything has to be balanced. If we take away any of the elements, it has a major impact. We may not see it immediately, but it could be over the years that this will impact. Soil degradation. Fires destroy a soil structure, reduces its fertility, increases erosion, and affects ability for the forest to regenerate. The damage is not short-term, it's actually long-term. And fortunately, Mother Earth is pretty damn good at recovering if we give it time and if we give it the right conditions. It will recover, but we have to be aware of that we got to make the effort to let it recover. Water quality, because what actually happens is a lot of the runoff of the burnt areas pollute the water sources, harming aqua life and also jeopardizing the water security. So though we said forest fires, impact, like I said earlier, is not just the land that's been burnt or damaged, but there are side effects to this. Bird life, animal life, water quality, living of the people, quality of life, air pollution. We can see the habitat lost. Forest fires destroy critical habitats of the wildlife, leading to the displacement and loss of species. So population decline, loss of food source, and connecting sites lead to decline in the wildlife population, impacting biodiversity and extinction risks. Endangered species are more likely to be wiped out due to forest fires than anything else. So we're pushing them closer and closer to extinction. And it's our duty to protect this for our children and their children's future. We should be working towards that it's our responsibility. We were handed this earth in whatever condition it was in at the time. If we can't improve it, at least what we should be doing is actively trying to protect it and maintain it to the same level that we were handed over, rather than causing a major disruption and impact on that. And you can actually see the degradation, loss of community livelihood, loss of resources, reduction in income, food insecurity, and displacement. I'll try to go through those: runoffs, water scarcity, crop failure, and food shortage. We can see the impact of some of these images, the timber loss and the destruction, infrastructure damage that is occurring all the time. So we got to look into these things and see what we can do to prevent, protect, and safeguard our children's future. Infrastructure damage and rebuilding efforts. So we can see that respiratory issues are increasing. Smoke inhalation causes respiratory problems, asthma, bronchitis, and various other medical conditions are being generated. Eye infections, smoke, and ash can irritate the eyes, leading to major issues with eye problems. And also we are aware that skin problems occur due to smoke and ash. And limited resources. What actually happens is it's our responsibility to try to protect this. If we protect that, then that gives some of our resources an opportunity. If we are irresponsible, they're already stretched. We know that the resources are not available to the number that we need. At the end of the day, governments don't have a limitless pit that they can just keep drawing money out of. They also have to try to balance the books. And if they want to spend more money, then they're going to have to tax you even heavier. And then we don't like taxes. So why don't we all work towards various issues, trying to reduce the overall cost and impact? And this will actually, in the long run, help the population as well. Because the more wastage, more damage that we do, the more costs are needed, trying to make sure that we protect these things. Nepal has a limited resources of firefighting and challenges in reaching remote areas and containing large fires. Overall, fire often faces long hours, difficult terrain, and unpredictable conditions because the weather can change here, the wind direction can change rapidly, which makes it even difficult to fight fires. It's easier said than done. So we already talked about the climate change and deforestation. Water, we touched on it, that it pollutes the groundwater as well. Not just the runoff, but the groundwater itself also gets polluted, and soil gets erosion and eroded away. Then that makes difficult for the crops to grow in that area. So we're not only just losing that, but we're actually losing the land mass that we need for food production. And also there are other side effects that we will try to go through. Challenges in fire prevention management, limited awareness, lack of awareness about the causes and consequences of fires among the local and communities hamper prevention, lack of resources. We said that it's not a bottomless pit that you can just carry on drawing from, that it's a never-ending well. No, it does come to an end. Accessibility, reaching remote areas. Now a lot more tools are available at our disposal. And I'll cover some of those tools later on in the presentation, which were not available in the early days. Helicopters, drones, next generation firefighting equipment, and the helicopters can pick up large amounts of water and drop them. There are various issues, but those are part of the solution. The solution, the biggest solution itself, is to prevent a fire in the first place. If we prevent it in the fireplace, then the impact itself is reduced. So we can actually say there needs to be a collaboration between government and the local communities. Government cannot fight fires. Governments can only provide a certain amount of tools, but it's up to the communities and for us, because government is just a number. They're our mouthpiece. They're supposed to be doing what we want them to do to support this. So we have to be aware that we can't just say, oh, but the government is doing nothing. We have to ask ourselves a simple question. If the government is doing nothing, what am I doing about it? It's as much my responsibility as it is of the government's. If we all took a little bit of responsibility, that will ease the problem for the masses. So we already need to engage the local communities in the fire prevention programs, and it's essential as their knowledge and participation is critical, because the government sitting in a Whitehall office somewhere cannot know the terrain, what the issues are, what the problems are. Only the locals know that. Locals can share that knowledge and support our firefighters and our people to do their job, because we need their support to help support and guide what is going on. And we actually looked at it, what we need to do in restoration initiative, seedling distribution, community-based forestry, and forest patrols. Those are all the things that will help to regenerate the lost land mass that we have. So we need to work together. Local communities need to do that and participate. One of the things that we should actually be aware of is the local knowledge of the type of vegetation that was in that region before the damage. We can actually do more damage by planting the wrong type of vegetation, wrong trees in the wrong location. We need to be aware what particular type of vegetation was there, and we need to make sure that we try to maintain the balance that's needed. Because in certain areas, there was an incident where they wanted to regenerate the area, and they planted the trees. And in fact, what happened was those particular trees sucked up large amounts of water where the previous trees hardly used any water at all. So that had a side impact of almost drying out the land and turning it back into a desert, and all those trees that needed a large amount of water could not be sustained. So they died. So you had a double problem. So we got to be aware of what was there before, and we got to try to protect and maintain the balance that actually exists. Because Mother Nature is pretty damn good at it, and it does balance things over, not just 1 or 2 years, not just 10 or 20, but over decades, hundreds, if not millions of years, to refine itself to make sure that the appropriate plantation, vegetation, animal, and arson, those are the things that contribute mainly to the wildfires. If it was left to nature, there'll only be very few instances. Majority of the instances, not just in Nepal. I keep saying this. I am talking about wildfires everywhere, not just in Nepal. This problem exists worldwide, throughout the world. It's not just Nepal's problem, where people say, oh yes, but Nepal has so many wildfires. Yes, they do. But then all you got to do is pick up a book or go on Google and search the wildfires in California. America is supposed to be a super state with sophisticated things and everything else available. How come they suffer the worst wildfires of any developed nation? Okay, but they can afford to do that, but we've only got a small land and we need to protect that heavily. Economic cost of the wildfires in Nepal, difficult to quantify precisely, but includes loss of timber, and we know that timber production plays a key role, damage to infrastructure, power lines, communication towers, increases health, which we talked about, and each time the person gets sick due to the wildfire, whether it's eye infection, skin problems, or breathing difficulties, they cost money, and they have impact on our lives, because we can spend that money elsewhere rather than trying to cure ourselves, and the long-term health damage cannot be cured with money. And also the government estimated wildfires caused loss worth billions of Nepalese rupees, though the exact figures are not available. It's very, very difficult to quantify those figures. It's not that the government don't want to share those figures with us, but they don't know. It's difficult because a lot of wildfires occur and they're small, but the impact is quite large when you add them all up. And social impact, displacement of communities living near the forested areas. If the forest burns, those communities lose their livelihood, they lose their homes, and they have to then move on and find somewhere else to live. So that actually has a major impact and loss of livelihood of those dependent on the forest resources. In fact, we all depend on the land for food, not only just the forestry, but also when the damage is done. Wildfires have no boundaries. They have no limitations. They'll go wherever the wind or the vegetation takes them. And they're not very, very difficult to stop once they get going. Okay, and that also adds on to the landslides and floods and deforestation. Government and the community response. Prevention control measures. Nepalese government, in collaboration with international organization, has implemented community-based forest management programs to reduce the wildfire risks. Awareness campaign, training programs have been conducted to educate the local communities about the prevention. Early warning system, firefighting equipment have been introduced. One of the things that has happened in the recent times, which we're talking about at the moment, is that in isolated areas, we discussed this yesterday, touched on it, and with the Minister for Forestry, that maybe fire extinguishers should be provided to certain locations where it's isolated. But the problem then becomes nobody has money to spare to buy fire extinguishers. So it's going to have to be a government initiative where it's partly funded and supported. So if you've got a fire extinguisher, a small fire, you can put it out quickly. But if you don't put it out, it becomes a big fire. But the problem is people who live in these hills and remote areas, they don't have a large amount of income to be able to buy fire extinguishers and so on. So government is going to have to step in and support those initiatives. And when they do, they will see the impact of reduction in the number of fires, overall cost to the government and to the communities. So there is a payback, and we just have to make sure that it adds up to something worthwhile. And it will do once the programs are taken away. Challenges, limited resources and infrastructure for firefighting, lack of coordination amongst government agencies. So like I said, governments are not perfect. They also have some major issues. And there is not really that much coordination between various agencies and so on. Left hand sometimes doesn't know what the right hand is doing, but they both think they're doing something. I suppose it's better than doing nothing. Climate change, increases temperatures continue to exacerbate the fires and the risks. And we know that they have caused a significant environmental and economic and social damage over the years. And sad thing is, it's not stopping, it's increasing. We all have to step up and start asking the questions and doing something about it rather than saying it's a government problem or it's somebody else's problem. That's the easiest thing is we pass the buck and we don't say it's my problem, it's my country, it's my area, it's my region, and that's my home that's going to burn. And as soon as we become responsible and we start taking those steps into account, then it will get easier for all concerned. Addressing this issue requires strong political, better resources allocation, and a greater community involvement. So again, governments will only listen when masses of communities demand them to listen. If we don't stand up and demand change, it won't happen. Like I said, it's such a simple program that every home should have a fire extinguisher, especially in the isolated places. Unless we start asking the question and we start raising awareness, well, it won't happen. Government are not going to say, oh, look, you need fire extinguishers, here's 500,000 of them. No, they're not. Even when you say we need them, they'll fight tooth and nail to stop you from getting them. But we got to be aware that we need them and we need to fight for that. Efforts to combat wildfires in the 20th century. In the earlier 20th century, saw establishment of fire forest department and development of fire management plans. Local communities were encouraged to participate in the fire prevention and support the effort. Despite these efforts, limited resources and lack of awareness posed a significant challenge. We keep coming back to the same thing. You might get sick of the same message. It's not by accident that I have put the same message in 10 different places with a slightly different wording. What I'm trying to do is reinforce the message again and again and again, because once read, it'll be forgotten. Twice read, it'll be a little bit of irritation. 3 times, it'll be a pain in the backside. And 4th time, you won't forget it because you'll be so irritated by it. So I'm doing this deliberately by design, not by accident. So don't think that when I was putting these slides through, oh, I didn't know what I was doing, so I just put the same message in 10 different places. No, I did it by design. And I'm trying to get a message across that it's not a government problem. It's our problem. It's not a government issue. It's our issue. We just got to make sure that we get the government to wake up and start looking into it, addressing it, and then fighting on our behalf as well. And traditional knowledge. I already covered on that very, very briefly. Local community possess valuable traditional knowledge about the fire management and prevention technique. Community awareness, raising awareness, hazards, importance of the fire conservation. Active prevention. So those are the things that we are talking about. Remote sensing, satellite imagery are available, because yesterday we saw that NASA had provided number of fires that actually took place, and it ran into thousands, because every little fire does a little bit of damage. And if you got thousands of them, and you can multiply that damage by thousands of times. And fire behavior modeling is available. A lot more work is being done on that. And with the help of aerial surveillance, now we know that we've got towers that monitor these things, and also communication systems. Improved communication system enable rapid response in coordination during the fire events. Previously, communication was a big issue. When there was a fire up in the mountains, and by the time we got to know about it, it was already burning fiercely and it was spreading wildly. Tough terrain, it made it virtually impossible to go to some of those locations. It wasn't easy to get there, and when you got there, you didn't have the resources to fight with it anyway. So you sent up a truck to investigate, and by the time the truck got there, investigate, yep, there is a fire and it's burning, it was already too late. Challenges in controlling wildfire: accessibility, because these areas are remote, very challenging terrain, and weather conditions can be very, very difficult at times. And lack of infrastructure, because we don't have a 2-lane motorway going all the way to wherever the fire is. We have certain infrastructure in place, but not to the remote places where fire is most likely to exist. Limited resources, including equipment, personnel, hamper effective fire suppression. Lack of awareness amongst local community and can contribute to an accidental fire. So we're coming back to the same message again: awareness, resources, remote locations. You can actually see shifting weather patterns and their impact on the wildfires. Drought and heat waves are more frequent than they used to be, and they're more severe, and they're contributing towards that. And change in perception. Pattern can lead to more intense and prolonged dry periods, which then contributes towards the fires. Even with the best will in the world, best trained people, we know that the fire department are here in very strong numbers and are doing a very, very difficult job. Underpaid, under-resourced, underfunded, equipment's not available, but they still do a damn good job with what they got available. We should also start to appreciate the firefighters and the job that they do. When there is a fire, please be aware that when they go in, they risk their lives. They are the only people who are going into the fire while we are running away from it. And we should really appreciate their efforts, and we should thank them for their commitment and the energy. It's not easy to risk your life to go into a fire knowing that could be my last breath. So congratulations personally from me for every firefighter that actually goes and does this most difficult and challenging of jobs. Like I said, underpaid, under-resourced, and they still do a damn good job to protect us. Thank you from bottom of my heart. And we know that we talked about spread of fire, winds play a critical role, dry vegetation, and we are aware of these things and the slopes and the canopies and the cleaning frames and so on. We can do a lot towards it. Reforestation, fire management plans, and community engagement. Reforestation should be encouraged. We need to be aware that we must plant the same vegetation. International collaboration has taken place, and a lot more international companies are coming forward and assisting Nepal and other places, and technical assistance and capacity building. Incorporating the traditional knowledge into our program is the key, because what the locals can tell you, no book will. Google cannot tell you that the local people know what is the problem, what is the issue, how to address them, and how to beat them. Okay, community-based fire management should be encouraged, and early detection systems. We already talked about the towers, the satellites, and so on. One of the initiatives, maybe what we should be looking at, is fire stations. Not as we know it as fire station that we know, but in the remote hills where cabin can be put up with the basic equipment already installed, that the people can get there quickly and they will have the firefighting equipment available to them, which will then reduce the time it needs to get the equipment to that location. If it's a difficult location, it should already be there. So maybe we should look into some of these, and those places should also include drones, because we need a fast drone to be able to get it up in the air to survey where the fire is, how badly the area is being burnt, so we can pass on that information and react quickly. In any fire, speed is the essence. Speed is what saves lives, or delay is what kills. And you can actually see the lesson learned from the past fires. We know that it's important prevention. And prevention is always better than the cure. No matter what problem you look at, whether it's your medical problem or if it's forest fires or anything else, prevention is always better than the cure. So try prevention first before you wait for the cure. And this, again, I really wanted to say that biodiversity in Nepal forests are home to a wide range of plants and animal species, contributing significantly to the global biodiversity. Livelihood, forests are major holders of the people, and climate regulation, water sanctity. We need to be aware of that. And this can have a major impact on what's going on at the moment. Destruction of the ecosystems, loss of birds, insects. You see, we talked about the bigger things. We talked about animals. We talked about birds. But nobody actually talks about the insects. They're so small that we actually forget them sometimes. But they play a major role in any forest, controlling forest, the land, eating the leaves, creating bacteria, creating funguses, and also they're the food for the birds. So we totally ignore our little best friends, insects. And we already said about the loss of the plant species. So damage to the infrastructure, homes, building. Fire destroys homes and buildings, displacing families and causing economic hardship. Power lines, fallen trees, damage infrastructure, lead to power outages and disruption. Essential services putting lives at risk. So when fire burns, these trees fall across the roads, stopping the emergency vehicles going there, getting there. So we need to make sure that we manage these areas and prevent such things. Deforestation, we need to control burn and clear the forest to reduce the actual fuel that is needed for the fires to burn. So we need to make sure that we spend time clearing, cleaning, and maintaining forest. Forest maintenance is very, very important. It's critical. And we totally forget that part of it, that we can actually have an impact on that. And that then, like I said, it stops the roads and it disrupts and damages transportation, affecting everyday lives and making it difficult for the emergency services. Education, housing shortage, loss of livelihood, and mental health problems. Air quality, health risks, loss of property, tourism impact. Some of these areas are totally dependent upon tourism. If certain area is hit with fires, for a number of years, the tourism actually dies. And those people's livelihood dies with it. You know, somebody who just depends upon the tourists annually to make their lives. If there is a fire, what are they going to do? You know, we don't give these little things a consideration. And it's a major, major issue that we need to be aware of. Carbon emission, when we plant trees, it helps towards it, cleans the air, so we end up with a better quality air, and we end up with slightly better lives. So we should be aware of that we are impacting every little action, even a single tree that we plant. To you as an individual, it has no value. So I planted a tree, big deal. But times that by number of people in this country, then you will realize the impact of one tree. If everybody just put one tree in the ground, it will have an impact. It does have an impact, and we should try to do that. And we already said difficult terrain, extreme weather conditions, and limited resources. Now we're looking at some of the traditional methods and some of the new methods that are coming into play now. So traditional methods, ground crews, water dropping aircrafts can be less effective against large, fast-moving fires. By the time you go and drop that and the next one comes in, the fire's already spread in a different direction. You can never keep up with it. America, you've seen that in California. You got a drone cycle of helicopters coming, going, dropping, but they don't seem to make much impact. So prevention is damn sight better than a cure. And we've already seen, because you can have the best firefighting equipment, the terrain prevents you from taking your best equipment to that location. So what happens? We send the men in uniform to go and do the dirty work for us. We can't get our trucks up there, but our men have to be there. And now we're looking at various technologies that are coming in. Drone, area surveillance. Now the drones are actually changing, because previously people thought drones as small things, but now their payload has increased into tons. So we can get equipment to that location by a drone very fast. But then we also need to get personnel to get there to operate that equipment. You can drop your equipment wherever you like with a drone, But unless you can get your people there to use that equipment, it's a wasted effort and energy. And now we know that predictive analyses and AI tools are playing a big game. Satellite monitoring, early detection, they can play a vital role in contributing towards safety. And real-time data, improved accuracy of weather patterns and predictions, they are also contributing towards it. Every little piece of the jigsaw helps us to put a complete jigsaw together. And satellite monitoring, early monitoring detection systems. You see, though they already exist, but they're not that readily available to the people on the ground. This, again, is a failure of communication. This information is only useful if it ends up with the right people at the right time, in a timely manner. Just to say we have that information actually defeats the object of even having that information. Right? We need to work with them wherever the equipment information is so that it can be shared in a very timely manner. And this will then help fight the fires. And we already said predictive AI. Again, prescribed burning to reduce the fuel for the fires. If we limit the fuel available, we will limit the size of the fire. And public awareness and community engagements are the key. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any questions, please let me know. I'll try my best. And like I said, this is just a very, very quick overview of some of the issues and the problems being faced by our firefighting friends.